Hi everyone, I'm Elio. I'm actually in the same company Renata is, Ura, and yeah, I'm also a proud member of the core team of open source design. Thanks to Victoria for organizing this. I have not been too much involved in organizing all of this, so it's really good to be here. I'm also a tech speaker at Mozilla, which supports me being at these awesome events and talk about topics which Mozilla cares about, which is a lot of topics, including also internet censorship. And I'm actually on a new adventure, and I'm in academia recently, which is kind of weird, but it's also new. So I am a designer and researcher at the University of Michigan. It's remote, so I don't like stepping on the US, but it's fine because I can do that from Berlin. And yeah, we do internet censorship research. So what we're going to talk about today is a few things. I know we are in a design track, but I would also like to talk about internet censorship research and the importance of it before we go into the design aspects. So we're going to talk about Censored Planet, the project, what it's all about. Kazakhstan, a country you don't hear a lot from, but lately there have been some internet censorship things going on, and I would like to talk about that. And because of that, also show to you how we can make our research more approachable and more relatable to people with better design and better UX. And what else we are up to in the future. So Censor Planet is a system and a software suite based in the University of Michigan, which allows to measure internet censorship all around the world without actually being there. So because there's a lot of censorship going on in countries like Iran and Turkey and China, of course, it's always hard to go inside these countries and do research because no one wants to do that. It's quite threatening to do that on the ground. So we have developed a system which can measure internet censorship remotely. In the comfort of our nice university in Michigan, we can measure all this stuff happening all around the world. So this has a few advantages. We are able to query a lot of measurements throughout time, every hour, all around the world. That means we can see what is happening all around hours. If there are political protests, we can see if there is something happening, because during a lot of protests, internet is getting shut down, the opposition website is getting shut down. It's a lot of interesting stuff happening. Also, in this case, we don't risk volunteers' lives being on the ground contributing measurements as well. So it's pretty safe. Yeah, we have VPSs rented all around the world, and we control them, and we can just query data throughout them and get the data back and see if there's any difference between them. So we compare two measurements, basically. The measurements from our own country, or a connection which is not censored, and we compare it to the connection in that country. And comparing these two, we can see if there's any interference going on. Of course, it's way more complicated than that, but I'm not so smart, and I'm just a designer, so I cannot talk about all these algorithms going on. But that's the nutshell. So I want to tell you a story about this, and so you can understand why this is so important. So a month ago, or 2 months ago, Mozilla has done a change in Firefox, and they blocked a certification authority from Kazakhstan. Certification authority is the authority which publishes HTTPS certificates, so you have a secure encrypted connection. So what was happening is that Kazakhstan wanted to surveil their users by doing their own homebrew certification authority. And they told all the users in Kazakhstan that for their own sake and their own security, they should install it. because they could get into cyber attacks from other countries and whatsoever. And this certification authority was not trusted by browsers, luckily, and the users would need to install it manually. And during that time, users were not able to access sites, so they were being forced to install it and being surveilled. So this started in July, and we tracked it just 3 days ago, 3 days afterwards until today. So we have data on this situation for quite a few months. 37 domains are affected, and the biggest telecom provider in Kazakhstan was doing this, Kazakh Telecom. And this can be triggered outside the country, so luckily we didn't need to travel to Kazakhstan. And the funny thing is that the domains triggered were pretty popular social media, Google, and all this kind of websites which people use on a daily basis and share personal stuff. So it was quite creepy, in my opinion. However, after our research has been published, and this has become quite a big thing, because Google, Chrome, and Mozilla Firefox blocked the certification authority, the Kazakhstan's president said that we should, don't worry, it's all good, we are all safe, this is for your own sake. So I guess Kazakhstan thinks that this is a great success, and I don't think so personally. But yeah, at least there's some understanding of the situation, and the reaction was quite fast. So Google Mozilla stopped it right away, and we were quite happy that this got a lot of traction on the different medias. Okay, enough about all this creepy politics, so let's talk about design. So understanding the importance of this stuff makes you think that how can we make this more approachable to people, that this is something important, but academia is really bad at making things more approachable. So I'd like to contribute to that. So the thing which I think is the most important is accessibility, and this starts from the colors. So we started with a new color scheme, which is WCH accessible, which is the W3C accessibility guidelines. So before we failed a lot of accessibility guidelines, but now we use the Mineral UI color palette. It's very easy to implement because all of the components are accessibility ready. So if you really don't want to spend time on doing all this stuff from yourself, you can just get these colors and adapt it to your project. So you can see, for example, that teal 60 is already accessible. Some people complain that they want to see the colors pop, but in my opinion, it's way more important to be accessible. We also did a small rebranding of the project. So this was the logo before. Yeah, it had no vector version, which is sad. And the colors were way too bright. It was not noticeable on many different backgrounds. But we also didn't want to make a huge change. We just wanted to clean it up, make it very understandable on many different sizes. So the new logo is simply a reiteration of the old one, just a cleaner one. We also used the typeface Barlow, which is in honor of Perry Barlow, the founder of EFF. It's a very good font, in my opinion. It's also open source, so you're all free to use it. To explain all this different and complicated history, like we also have a censorship case in Russia going on, we also are creating infographics which can make it easier to people to understand what is happening. Because if you get a research report which is 100 pages, just black and white, a certain number of people won't be able to dive into it. So we also worked on infographics, which explains the timeline of, in this case, the timeline of Russia's censorship starting in 2007, going into 2012, about all the different things which were happening. 2017, when Telegram started being censored in Russia. And what's the date today? It's 24th October. So in 1 week, we will have a new law in Russia which comes into force. So the single telecom operator in Russia will be able to control all of this censorship going on. So I thought that was relevant today, since we are 1 week ahead, far away from that new law coming to force. We're also doing quite a few publications. So we worked on designing the layout design of these new publications. I don't want to go into the cliche, cheesy, stock photo stuff of nodes and whatever, so we took a more abstract approach, which I think might have been a bit more suitable in this case. So yeah, I can't really explain it. It's just like abstract art. And the illustration part is not really ready yet, but we started experimenting. And I thought it was also a good opportunity to show to you that about this new project, which is Open Doodles. It's a small public domain repo with different Doodles illustrations, which people can use in their own projects. And we are using them just to brighten up the mood, to lighten up our materials when it's necessary. Of course, when working with journalists, human rights journalists, we try to set the tone right. But in this stage, for example, I think it's appropriate to lighten up the mood. You're free to use that as well. There are over like 30 or 40 illustrations. It sets a good base to start a new project. Of course, once you have set a new identity and new branding, you might want to do something yourself from scratch. So yeah, that's basically what we've been doing until now, and we want to do even more in the future, 2020. We want to do data visualization guidelines. Data visualization is something very important, which brings the message home, in my opinion, but also it lacks a lot of accessibility and making it clear to people. So we want to work on that, so all of our research makes more sense to anyone who reads them. We'll have a new website, which I think is kind of outdated now, but we got to fix it very soon. And a lifestyle guide. Instead of a PDF where we have all the guidelines, our lifestyle guide will be able to give to you every component, every color, fonts, all the kind of stuff to make new materials yourself. So yeah, that's basically, in a nutshell, what we've been doing in the last months. You can get involved and you can check out the website. And ideally, you can get involved by yourself, but I know how hard it is. So please reach out to me if you are interested in that topic, and I'll be gladly able to help you. And I hope you learned a bit about censorship and are curious to learn a bit about it more in the future as well. Thanks for coming. Do we have time for questions? Any questions, comments, critique?
Thanks for the talk. You said you have volunteers in different countries, and I am from Turkey and I have a family. Maybe they might be a volunteer, but how do you ensure the safety of the volunteers on the ground?
Yes, we don't have volunteers in different countries. I used to work on a project before, part of the TOR project called UNI, which uses a different method. So volunteers inside these countries need to use measurements on the ground. This project of ours actually does not require that. So every one of us, we live in the United States and Germany, and we are not in these countries. So we just automatically query them. We just rent out servers in these countries. So the safety, even hypothetically, the safety of all people is fine. And there are no volunteers involved, basically. Any other questions, comments? Yeah? That's a.
So my question is, this method of measurement is easily attackable. All I have to do is to trace the rentages from Germany or America, whatever, and shut those servers down.
Well, the servers are located in the University of Michigan. So our servers, shutting them down in a university would be kind of problematic. But if you might be able to shut down the servers we rent out in different countries.
Exactly, I was talking about that.
Yeah. I don't want to say something wrong because my knowledge is limited in that.
Don't reveal too much details.
But the sheer amount of servers we rent is so huge, I'm not sure if they are able to do that. Because we are renting out hundreds of servers in countries we are interested in. So in Kazakhstan, we had hundreds of servers during this use case. I'm not sure if they would be able to shut down hundreds of servers. There's a question.
On the design side of things, you said you're planning on coming out with a lifestyle guide. Do you have software decided on what you're going to use to produce that?
At URA, in the past 2 years, we've been working pretty steadily on that. We mostly do our style guides in Jekyll, which is a static page generator. And we keep improving up on that. And for the next project, we usually use the old style guide of another project and keep building up on that. So that's what we use. I think it works fine. It's quick, it's fast, it's open. You can track changes easily. It's also, everything is open, so you are free to use that if you know your way around Jekyll quite a bit.
Does open source design have that listed in their resources?
That's a good question. I don't think we have it. The style guides were created. Is it under our resources? I don't think it's in our repo, in the URA repo. Repos and issue tracker, but yeah, we should include that in the resources as well. Thank you. Cool, thanks for coming. I'll be around all day together with our other open source design folks. Thanks.